welcome to our show. Well, we've got a serious subject today.
Yes, we do.
And I heard a very interesting statistic. Did you know that 2/3 of all child abuse is committed by women?
No, that is a surprise. Women?
That's right. Probably
Wow.
because they are disproportionately the single heads of households. But just the same, it's a very surprising statistic.
Yes, it is. I would have thought that it was the other way.
Well, in my house it was. My father, he was right on the edge of abuse. You know, but I always thanked him for the spankings. I really did. That discipline was important to me. But there's a difference between discipline and abuse. And today, we're going to hear a lot of other shocking and surprising statistics.
We have a great show for you today. Good information on a very serious topic. We're going to talk about domestic violence.
But we're going to hear his side. While we're not wanting to take anything away from the other issues, we think that these voices, well, they're the voices that are not often heard.
Please welcome our first guest, Mr. Mike Altman.
Hi, good to see you.
Mike Altman, well, first of all, I want to thank you for joining us on our show.
Yes.
I know
privilege.
these aren't easy things to talk about. And you, I won't say you are, but you were a male perpetrator of domestic violence.
That's correct.
It's a difficult thing to deal with. Would you tell us your story?
Sure, it is difficult because it's revealing to the world at large a secret that I don't want known.
Right.
And my violence began actually in 1964 when I was a college student, married with 2 children. Very stressful. And one evening something triggered me. I don't know what it was, but I threw our stereo across the room.
Wow.
The years that followed, the rage and incidences occurred more prevalent. The other side of my picture was this. While I am perpetrating it at home and on the highway and at my place of employment, I was also a devout church person. Elder in the local church had a very good side of me that was shown. I had my church face and then I had my real face. In 1994, after I had been sentenced with menacing for an axe incident,
Wow.
I went to a treatment center in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And it was during this time at Bowling Green, Kentucky that I realized that I had a problem. It was not about the people that I was perpetrating. I always felt that they were causing me to be angry.
What were the triggers in your home that, or from other people, what were those triggers that you thought they were responsible for? Were there particular behaviors
Yes.
that would...
Yes.
Set you off.
Yes, you're correct. That's correct. I would say that the triggers had to do with childhood abandonment, and which gave me no value. So when someone did something to me that touched my value, that was a definite trigger for absolute rage.
And so when you, in your marriage, what were those things that your wife or your children could do that would trigger that?
After I went to the bridge, and I was there for, let's say, 2 months, and I came home, and I'm trying to act very good and do my program, and one evening I did something that my wife did not like, and she put her hands on her hips and she said, "And to think, we wasted all that money on you at the bridge." Boom! My
Wow.
chair went sailing.
Wow.
Because I was trying to do something that I thought was worthwhile, and I felt discounted.
You wrestled with this rage for quite a while, a number of years.
Yes,
And you mentioned and touched on the fact that rage became an addiction.
I believe it is.
There must have been some kind of gratification or some kind of satisfaction of something within you that this rage seemed to express. What was that?
I think it was my identity of having power and control, because in my early life I had no power and control. I was robbed of all value as far as being allowed to make a decision. I was told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. If I did not obey, boom.
Now, where in this process, like when you went to the bridge, obviously at that point you were motivated and you knew something was wrong, but did it take a while before you really understood what I'm doing is is abusive, it's out of control, I have a problem. Was it your wife having to come and say, this is out of control, or did you kind of suspect?
I believe this was a process of understanding, of awareness, that it didn't happen the first time. It probably took 3 to 5 years for this really to mature to where I realized and would refer to myself as a perpetrator.
You would refer to yourself as that?
In groups now, I refer to myself as the perpetrator, and that I have a responsibility as a perpetrator to protect you and you from me.
Did you have a perpetrator in your life that had rage and anger?
Yes. One time I went to visit my father, probably one of the few times, and I didn't know that this was about my father and mother's child support issue. And I surprised him about 10 o'clock at night in his wood shed. He was chopping wood, and I burst through the door saying, "Hi, Daddy," and he spun around and he looked at me and he said, "GD, you little SOB, what the blank are you doing here?" And he threw his axe across the room.
Oh my goodness.
Good Lord.
So that was my perception of my father's value of me.
I'm curious, did your faith ever become more real for you after you began to turn your life around?
Oh, yes. My faith is a living, vibrant faith. I have a relationship with my higher power now that I did not have before, because I perceive my higher power in the same way I perceive my father and mother.
Yes.
So you had rage against God as well.
I have done anger work against God.
And now it seems as though things have turned around.
Things have turned around. I have a beautiful relationship with my wife, myself, my family, and my God.
That's incredible.
That's good news. Mike, we're just grateful that you came
Thank you.
to share your story with us today. And there is treatment. There is hope. When we come back, we're going to meet another man, but this time a male victim of domestic violence. His wife was criminally charged after he was hospitalized on several occasions.
You can learn English at home. Watch Hello Channel.
Meatball on white. Next. You want mustard on that or not? Come on, I haven't got all day here. It doesn't come with peppers. They're extra. Hurry up, pay the lady. Next. Chicken's fresh, I killed it myself. So that's what you want? Next. While we're still young, you know you told me you wanted mustard. Get out of here. Time's up. Back of the line.
Hey, excuse me.
What?
Great sandwich. Thanks.
Compliments. Pass them on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Please welcome Bob Ellis. Now, Bob, you were a successful airline pilot with a wife and a son. Can you tell us how the domestic violence came about?
Well, it started early on, probably 1992 is when it initially started, and I did see signs of erratic behavior when I was dating, but I kind of overlooked them or largely ignored them. But after the birth of our son, it became intensely severe. The severity of the attacks and the emotional outbreaks and the mood swings were just intense.
So now you're successful at work and you've got a new baby, and now things are really blowing up out of control. Is that?
Yes. Probably the most illustrative example was just 3 or 4 days before Christmas. I think it was December 20th. I was holding my son, unlocking the car door, and she came up from behind and hit me in the right temple with an object in her hand, and then tried to kick me in the genital area. And it was just I almost dropped my son. She hit me so hard. I mean, I was dizzy and had to go into the emergency room to get treated. And this is just the beginning of it, but that's when I knew there was something really wrong.
And you had to
here.
call the police and say, my wife is out of control and I'm running with my son.
Yeah, I called them all the time, many times. They knew who we were.
Was making that first call hard?
Once the violence started, it wasn't too hard, but it was hard in the sense that I wanted some kind of resolution to this, or some kind of a program to get through this. I didn't really want divorce at this point. I wanted to, try to help solve the problem.
Did you have any kind of understanding or at least some kind of perception of why she was behaving this way?
No, I didn't know. I mean, I couldn't find, I had no idea what would be causing this.
What was the first step that you took in trying to decipher what is this problem? Why is this woman going off on me like this? What was the first step you took in getting help?
Well, I talked to counselors and ministers, professionals in this area, and even medical doctors to see if there was anything we could do. But nothing really came to avail. Nothing really worked.
So you just hit a helpless wall. That just hit that place where you thought, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, and even then I didn't give up because I knew my son was going to be left there somehow.
What was the result of your not giving up? What did you gain? What did you lose?
Well, actually, by not giving up, harmed me a lot more in retrospect. I think if I had never even gone to court, never even gone to trial through the divorce, I'd have had more visitation time and better visitation time than I have now. Because frankly, I have no contact with my son.
Your son is with the perpetrator of this domestic violence against you?
Yes, with all the evidence that was placed
Doesn't the
before
court recognize that a person who would perpetrate this kind of frequent crime on the spouse very well may express that kind of violence with the child?
I mean, I would think they should know that, but it's clear to me that, you know, you might say truth, justice, and fairness clearly didn't exist in my courtroom.
We've got clarity
That's
on
amazing.
some of this thought. Please welcome now Lynn Hussar, Bob's support advocate. Thanks for joining us. You are Bob's support advocate. What role did you play in his making it through?
Well, I didn't get started in advocating for and with him and supporting him until he was really beyond the abuse. And the reason that I became interested in it is because I saw it as a missing piece to the puzzle.
Well, I'm anxious to hear some of the statistics
Okay, well-
relevant to Bob's particular
good.
situations. Can you
Okay.
share one or two of those
Yeah,
statistics?
these are statistics that have to do with fatherless children. And that's what I think is really important that we address. Children without fathers in the home are 5 times more likely to commit suicide, 32 times likely to run away, 20 times more likely to have behavioral disorders, 14 times more likely to commit rape, 9 times more likely to drop out of high school, 10 times to abuse chemical substances, 9 times more likely to end up in a state-operated institution, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. That's without fathers.
Wow.
And all throughout the United States, fathers are being kept away from their children.
And the key element too is, in my case with my son, the seeds are now planted for him to abuse. I mean, his mode of conflict resolution is violence today.
Wow.
When we come back, we're going to have Mike come back and his wife and see how they were able to keep their marriage together and heal from the violence. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Hello.
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 Welcome back, and we're welcoming back Mike Altman, and now joining us is his wife, Carol.
Yes.
Welcome, Carol. I want to thank you both for being here. We also have with us David Gramillion from the Men's Health Network here as a third party to help us gain a perspective on this as a national issue. But first, Carol, tell us your side. How on earth were you able to keep your marriage together?
Well, I think during the period of abuse that was going on, there was a lot of things happening. One was that what do? You've got all these children to support. How can you do this on your own? Then also there was a really nice guy that I lived with sometimes. And I think another issue too was that I was sexually abused by the time I was like 3 years old. And so abuse was part of my lifestyle.
So at what point of out of control did you decide this is abuse beyond?
There came a point where I said, I am not going to live like this any longer. And so that was when the decision was made for him to go to a treatment center.
Was there a defining event?
Not an event. It was just a series of events. And I think the thing that was probably the most deciding effect, and probably the thing that bothered me even more than the abuse, was when he started talking about suicide on a daily basis. He would wake up in the middle of the night, and he was so sick of being himself that he talked about suicide constantly, and it's just like, I can't handle this anymore. I want out of this.
Was it like a breath of fresh air when you saw him go to get some help the first time?
Oh, yes.
Did you see results right away, or what did you feel when he had the first relapse?
Oh, well.
Well, she said it was, remember? She said, well, all that money for
all
nothing.
that money wasted. But part of that was because I had such serious control issues of my own that I really, in dealing with him, when he started acting like a normal human being, it actually wasn't comfortable for me. Because I had lived 35 years with him being another way, and I knew how to deal with this abusive now.
Dr. Gramillion, is that common? You have an abuser who links up with someone who's used to being abused?
What I'm hearing is Carol acknowledging a role. I'm hearing Carol describing to Mike and to your audience that in fact she played a significant role in what happened, although Mike's clearly the perpetrator, has owned up to that and has changed. There is inevitably a change required in the victim as well.
Is that right?
Oh, yes.
Particularly in this kind of case. Now, Carol has acknowledged that there were issues on her part. Is this typical that in the case of a perpetrator, that the victim has indeed not only just pressed buttons, but has had personal psychological issues to deal with?
The really careful studies that have been done on domestic abuse show that most often it's a two-way street. There is often almost a mutual combat underway. And over 100 studies now show that women initiate violence about as often as men do.
Wow.
They're often very successful in their violence and control behaviors. But you'll not often see this represented in the popular press.
How often did you ever throw anything back? How often does the victim just get into it and heave it back? You didn't.
No, in fact, I'd have to take a little exception. In fact, I reacted passively and tried to really solve a problem. But as time went on, when I went into the court system, it appeared to be as if they were sort of blaming me for her behavior. And that's kind of where it's gone to date.
Did you ever just feel like throwing a lamp back at him?
I not only felt like it, I did it.
Did you?
I remember probably the first instance was I had picked up a glass of milk and he had done whatever he normally does with his cruel remarks and threw a glass of milk in his face. And he was so stunned and so shocked by it that he didn't even react. And I know a second time I threw a jar of peaches, but that was very unusual behavior for me. Normally I didn't do that because I was scared to death to do it, but those two times it was just like I couldn't handle it anymore.
And what you were saying is that sometimes it is equal. I mean, you really have a brawl that can take place.
Well, all studies confirm that it is equal in terms of its initiation. Now, what is unclear is the effect on the victim. Mike, I doubt that she could do much damage to you with a bowl of peaches. Is that right? On the other hand, when the victim is a female, because of the greater size and strength of a male, it is often that they sustain greater damages. And without detracting from the need for spouse abuse for females and all the funding and legislation that's necessary, I'm generally a proponent for that. I believe that we also have to have some attention to cases like Roberts, where there's clearly violence perpetrated by a female in the household. What the public doesn't realize is that women can often be violent. We know, for instance, that over 60% of child abuse is conducted by women. 54% of child murder is conducted by women. Much of elder abuse, an increasing problem because of the aging population. Almost all of the elder abuse is conducted by women. So to look at male as perpetrator in a vacuum avoids these other elements of violence within the household that, if properly addressed in our lifetime, could perhaps bring about an end to this cycle of domestic violence that seems to pass from generation to generation.
Well, this is a very sober subject, and I think we've had some very well, enlivening and enlightening information. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, particularly Bob and Mike and Carol for sharing your personal experience. And of course, Dr. Gramillion, thank you for the global perspective on this. And we'll have some final thoughts when we come back.
Are you looking for a way to change your life? The answer may be as easy as watching TV. Introducing Hello Channel, an exciting new channel that's designed to teach you to speak English. New opportunities will be available to you when you learn the language of the internet, commerce, travel, and diplomacy. No need to pay for your expensive schools or tutors. You can learn English by watching Hello Channel. Invest in yourself. For a brighter future, say hello.
Well, we've had a wonderful panel of guests here, huh, Tammy?
We have.
I look over you, Bob, and I know you've been a victim, but there's new life. Are there final thoughts you want to share?
Yes, I don't have much in the way of any resources, and I can't really fight my battle any longer. I've run out of funds. I just pray every day for my son's welfare, and I hope at some point I can find assistance to help my son out of that situation, or even see my son again.
Wow. Dr. Gramillion, do you have any words of wisdom, encouragement?
Unlike the situation with abused female spouses, abused male spouses have literally no resources. There's no federal funding. There's a great need for that. But for your viewing audience, as well as for Robert, I would encourage him to contact the Men's Health Network, www.menshealthnetwork.org, where there are a lot of resources, contact opportunities, and I think there are many people who would benefit from reviewing that site.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Carol, for being here, and thank you for reaching out to help so many other people.
Yes.
We also have a website to mention to you for SAFE. It is www.safe4all.org. And with 2/3 of the nation's children growing up in broken families, it's a vicious cycle. It must be stopped. Doesn't matter whether dad is hitting mom or mom is hitting dad. Spirits get broken. The children are the ultimate victims. If you or someone you know needs help in getting out of an abusive situation or trying to save their marriage from domestic violence, please refer to our website at www.lifestyle.org. There you'll find links to the Men's Health Network as well as to SAFE. Thank you for joining us today. For Tammy, I'm Clifton. We'll see you next time on Lifestyle Magazine.